You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph, back with another prospect interview. Joining me today is Northern Michigan offensive tackle Jake Witt. How are you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing awesome. Glad to be here, and I'm super excited for it.
So I personally am super excited for this interview just because, I feel like a lot of these interviews are more or less the same as far as the line of questioning, right? But for you, I feel like you have such a unique journey that, I definitely want to get into that, right? So definitely calls for different questions. But before we get into that, for those of you guys tuning in, make sure you hit that like button, show Jake some love. But now let's get right into it. So Jake, like I mentioned, you have a unique path to where you are today, and I love it because I feel like it's just a testament to how well you can adapt, right? But for those of you who don't know about Jake's journey, we'll talk about it today. And first, I do want to talk about your size because I feel like that's important context and why I think you've been in the positions that you've been in. And so you're 6'7". And so obviously you have the height. In high school, you were 235 pounds. So you were playing basketball at that point. And you're a bit of a star at basketball, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, small Upper Peninsula, Michigan community. We were the smallest division of a school as well. So, every high school we were playing had less than 120 people in it. So it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun, and we had some good teams. We're a basketball high school where I'm from. So, it was something that we did from second grade on, basketball. But yeah, I had a good high school basketball career, which, it was a lot of fun. I only played football those last 2 years as well as track. But yeah, basketball was my sport all the way growing up.
Yeah. So, yeah, you didn't start playing football until your junior year of high school. And so, what was your introduction to football in the first place? What made you get into that? What'd you like about it?
Yeah, honestly, right when I originally started playing football, it was kind of something that I thought would get me physically better and just stronger, in better shape for basketball season. So that was originally what I had started playing football for. I was a wide receiver in high school. But eventually, I probably about 1 to 2 games into that season, became completely separate from basketball. I loved football as a sport, and it was its own thing. It wasn't something just to prepare for basketball anymore. It was my own love. So
what about the sport did you like about it, though, that kind of just you found yourself kind of, swaying to it a little bit at one point?
yeah, we played 8-man football up there. So it was such a small, we played small teams. We were a small team. So it was a different game than 11-man, but it was a lot of fun. I was a wide receiver, and it was just interesting. I'd never played before. I was relying on my athleticism. And at that time, my favorite player was Calvin Johnson, so I was like, oh, he's a big wide receiver. I'm a big wide receiver. So when we had success that season, it was just a lot of fun. I'm like, oh man, I want to be the next Megatron, and it was just fun in that aspect. It was a completely new thing that we had good success at, and it was just refreshing. And yeah.
Well, you did kind of go back and forth between the two sports, sometime after that as well. And it wasn't really until about 2020 that you wanted to pursue football as your primary sport, right?
Right. Yeah. So my decision right out of high school, I was either going to go take a preferred walk-on opportunity I had over at Central Michigan University for football, take a scholarship opportunity for football at Northern Michigan here, or a Michigan Tech basketball scholarship. I opted to go with the one basketball route I had. It was such a natural sport for me. I'd played it since second grade. I thought at that point it was the best decision for me going forward. So I played a full year at Michigan Tech, a full year of basketball. Realized, I went in undeclared. So for example, Michigan Tech's a fantastic engineering school, one of the best in the country. I went in thinking I might want to study something related to that. Went in, and undeclared, taking just the basic, intro to engineering courses and whatnot. And I kind of got into that second semester and realized, oh, well, this, isn't what I want to do. I want to study something more health sciences related. I think that me being exposed to the college level athletes, college level strength and conditioning, all that kind of pushed me in that direction. So I wanted something where I could go into strength and conditioning eventually, a career field relating to that, or an education relating to that. And Northern Michigan had a fantastic health sciences program. So transferred over here just for the academics. And I was a student for one semester, that fall semester of 2019. And then, I reconnected with the football coaches that spring of 2020, and here I am.
And so you went from playing, wide receiver in high school to, at Northern Michigan, you were playing tight end. Was that just because, like, at that point you had just not so much grown, but like maybe you were a little like bigger in size, or?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I went in Michigan Tech. I played my freshman year of basketball around 250. When I got to Northern, I was lifting. I was just a student for that semester. I got up to around 260, 265-ish. By the time I joined the team, I was right around 270 that spring. So it was overall, I'm 6'7", 270 is kind of like your prototypical tight end size. So it was a natural decision for me at that point. There's no more wide receiver in the picture. They actually, out of high school, had recruited me as a defensive end. Northern did. So, that was also in play. Was I going to play tight end or defensive end? I ended up playing tight end for that full practice calendar year of 2020 into the spring of 21 due to COVID. And then, played the 21 season at tight end until I switched to tackle.
Do you feel like that COVID year kind of gave you some time to, become a better football player, since it was still, pretty new to you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was kind of a blessing for me, honestly, getting that opportunity to come in. It was such a rough time, obviously, for a lot of people, myself included, but also in a way, a positive outlook on it for me was I hadn't played football at that point in about 2 years. I was coming from small 8-man football going up to, Division II football, and that was going to be a huge learning curve. So that whole COVID year was great for me. I was able to develop my skill set. I kind of transferred positions, obviously, from receiver to tight end. So I had to learn everything about blocking. So that whole year was awesome for me in that aspect. It was just a full training year, kind of developing me, my skill set, just everything for that next season when we were going to play.
And so it was your coach at Northern Michigan who presented you with the idea of starting on the offensive line. What was it, something that you kind of had to agree on, like those first two games that you played, or were you kind of voluntold? Like, how did that kind of transpire?
Yeah, so actually, it was at the end of that 2021 season. I started at tight end the entire year leading up to that. I think it was week 9, I believe. We were playing the eventual national champions, Ferris State, and we had offensive linemen that went down with an injury. Another one went down with an injury. And we were on the road, so we only traveled, 50-something guys. We didn't travel that deep in certain positions, and we had no options. So at halftime of the Ferris State game, he walks up to me with a number 65 jersey on, and he says, "Hey, we need you to go out and do this. We don't have anything. We don't have any other options." So at that point, it was a requirement for me to help the team out to switch out and play right tackle. I never done it before. I was the tight end, so that was kind of the easiest position to transfer over, since we were all basically out of offensive linemen. So I played, the second half of that game at right tackle. I didn't really know what I was doing, but played the next 2 as well, the rest of that season. Then sat down with coach after the season, and we finalized that decision and said, hey, we're going to make that full transition to playing full-time tackle. And I ended up playing left tackle this entire last 2022 season.
Right. So your senior season, 11 games started at left tackle. Was there a point in that year where, you felt like things were starting to click for you, or what was that experience like, or were you still feeling like you were trying to figure out how to do it all?
Yeah, it was definitely a learning environment for me. I mean, I was going into it basically, I trained in the spring and summer, trying to make that transition, but nothing was really going to prepare me for different schemes, different players and all that you'd come up against, when you're playing these various different teams. So it was a huge learning curve. Weeks 1 through 6, I was basically brand new at left tackle playing this competition. So I was learning as it goes. The second half of the season, obviously still learning a ton, but it was more natural at that point. I knew a lot more just about the mentality, the things you had to know as an offensive lineman, which is a lot of the part of playing that position. So the physical stuff was still coming along. The mental stuff was coming along as well. But, obviously still to this day, I mean, I've only played 1 full year at the position, and I'm somebody who's still developing my game and just coming in as a, raw athlete, basically a ball of clay for any team or any coach to mold.
Right. And I think that that's what teams like about it, right? That you have the athletic ability, you have all the tools, right? But it's like they look at you, I'm sure, and think, oh, like this is what we could do with him. Think of all the think of all the possibilities. I mean, clearly teams took notice of what you were doing despite the small sample size, and they want to see more. I mean, you were invited to the College Gridiron Showcase. I know you declined that invite. Walk me through your mindset when making that decision, because I know that that might have been kind of tough to decide at the time.
Yeah. So we did get that invitation. At the time of that invitation, I played my 22 season at around 280 pounds, probably finished in the upper 270s. I was still gaining weight from that tight end transition. So I was light, and my agent and I sat down, we discussed the pros and cons and decided at that point we didn't want to go in early January and still be a very underweight tackle for the next level. So we didn't want that to be the showing and the idea and the impression that scouts got of me, because we knew I was going to athletically test well. I was going to be strong. I was going to be physical, but we wanted me to look the part, So I obviously took the next couple months. I weighed in at 302 at my pro day, was still working to get up to 310, 315-ish, but above that 300 mark, was what our goal was. We didn't want to go in front of the scouts and everybody watching and be 280 pounds only. So that was really what made that decision.
Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense, because, like, for a lot of teams who are going to be attending the Gridiron Showcase, that might have been their first impression of you, right? So you'd want it to be a good one. I think that definitely makes sense, and I don't think anybody could argue that it was the right decision. I mean, you mentioned the fact your pro day, 302 pounds, your 40 time, 4.89, like that. That's absolutely insane for a guy of your size, right? And some other amazing numbers you put up. Your vert would have tied for first among, like, offensive linemen at the combine. Your broad jump would have been the best that has ever been seen for offensive linemen in the last 10 years. Your short shuttle was fast. 9.92 RES score. That's crazy. I mean, what was training for that like? And was it a challenge at all to balance gaining weight and still wanting to test fast?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, luckily I've always been a person that has been able to put on weight pretty lean. So when I've made my transition, I knew my frame could hold some good weight still. And, still can. I could still easily be 320, 325 pounds and not lose too much. So that's something we kind of explored as I was, coming from even 265 to 280. We realized, some of my numbers were even getting better due to me putting on some more size, getting some more power, some more explosiveness. So, we weren't too worried about that. I was training up here in Marquette, Michigan at Advantage Sports Training, which that's actually the guy that kind of got me into football, playing at the college level again. I've been with him for 3 years now. He runs a pro day prep program every single spring. So he was a natural decision for me to train with him. So we trained, we were training 6 days a week. 4 of those days were lifts. 2 of them were skill work days and conditioning days. And, we were just honing in on, the minor things that might not seem like a lot in these tests, whether it's the start of the 40-yard dash, the particular footwork in the pro agility drill or the L drill. We were hitting our jumps, our broad and our verts a lot, different variations of those. It was just, everything was focused towards those tests because it was, they call it the underwear Olympics, the combine every year. And that's basically what it is. Everybody's there to see what numbers these guys put down. And, for me, coming from a small school, we knew I would hit some pretty good numbers. We knew I was going to test well, but we also knew this was going to be my biggest attribute coming from where I'm coming from, only a year playing a small school. So we put a lot of our focus on every little bit of preparation for this because, since the pro day, things have exploded for me. There's been a lot of recognition with all that, and it's gone a lot better than I could have asked for, but we knew that was going to be what was going to be the break for me.
Yeah, and it definitely was. And now that your pro day is over, we mentioned how different training for those kind of agility tests is. And so now I'm sure your training has shifted more to like football based. So are you training with any like offensive line coaches? What is your training looking like today?
Yeah, so we're still doing 4 lifts a week. We're still hitting those. We're continuing to get stronger, more explosive, all that stuff. But there's less focus on the small minor details of all these tests because we won't need to do these again. We're just working now on explosiveness for real game situations, strength, speed, just general strength and speed. Nothing focused towards any of those. And then a ton of our time, like you said, is now focused on skill work because the next phase in this whole step is going to the rookie mini camp and then the fall training camp, and nobody's going to care what your 40 is. Nobody's going to care what your vertical jump is. They're only going to care how you are as a football player. So that's really the main focus at this point. And yeah, I'm training with, there's an offensive lineman up here that was also doing his pro day prep, and then an offensive tackle from the but an offensive lineman from the CFL up here as well, and then offensive line coach that used to coach at Northern. So he's up here. We just grind probably about 3 or 4 days a week as our main focus that is taken over from our combine prep.
And we talked about the fact that with pro day over, a lot of teams interested. What's the biggest feedback that you're hearing from teams so far?
Yeah, all the teams think that I'm just a raw athlete. They see in the testing I've done, they know that I'm raw when we'll be a developmental prospect. And, that's something I realized too, obviously. And I'm completely, I know that's the best thing for me and I'm super excited for it. Getting a year or 2 of development from the best coaches in the world, learning from the best players in the world, and then adding it in with what I can offer physically and athletically, that's what they're saying is going to be a great combination. And I tend to agree with them. I know that my ceiling is high and can only go up from here.
Is there anything that you've specifically self-identified as something you want to improve on? I know you mentioned the weight, you want to get to 315, but is there anything else?
Yeah, I'm working on, particular in my pass sets, handling the bull rush. Obviously, I was playing it lighter this past season. So that was a bit of an issue when I'd get a bull rush just because my weight was light. With some added weight and technique work, we're honing in on that. We're honing in on the run game as well because playing guys, at the NFL level compared to the Division II level, they're going to be bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, much stronger. So, the run game, I'm going to be facing a guy that's 300 pounds potentially versus 270, right? So we're just working on making sure every little skill is really honed in on, the footwork with all that, just so that I can transition to that level the most easily.
And going back to your experience with basketball, have any of those skill sets translated at all to playing tackle? Do you feel like any of that has helped you out?
Yeah, footwork wise, especially, especially in pass protection, that's, footwork's a huge part of that. It kind of similar to defending somebody in basketball. You're trying to essentially stay in front of your defender and the basketball hoop in basketball. I'm just trying to stay in front of my defender the defensive end of the quarterback now. So, it's obviously a different type of defense, but in ways it's similar. And the footwork really helps me, when I need to gather, when I need to catch up to my defender and whatnot. But yeah, basketball has been a huge part of my transition and why it's been easier than maybe if I hadn't played that other sport.
And being that you're still, soaking up what it means to play tackle, are there any guys in the NFL that you've watched a lot or you try to watch a lot and maybe model your game after?
Yeah, obviously one of you guys, Trent Williams, one of the best tackles to ever do it. He's a guy that any offensive lineman can watch and see how he does things and how he attacks different, schemes and whatnot. And then there's some guys that I compare myself to, like Jordan Mailata, left tackle for the Eagles. He started playing football only a number of years ago as well, and he was developed into a starting left tackle for the Eagles. Lane Johnson, again, Eagles. He's a guy similar to me. He came in just over 300 pounds. I think he was 306 at his pro day or his combine. And he's developed into arguably one of the best right tackles of the game's ever seen. So he's somebody, similar height to me, similar physical attributes. So I try to see how he attacks, all these different little parts of the game, kind of like Trent. We try to watch those and see, with his frame similar to mine, how does he defend a bull rush? How does he work in the run game? Stuff like that.
Awesome. And do you see yourself experimenting with any other positions on the offensive line? I mean, you've proven you can do it once, or are you pretty much like set at, left tackle or maybe even right tackle at this point?
Yeah, I'm definitely not set. If a team wants to, obviously I know if I want to play guard, I need to get up to 325, So if a team wants me to do that and explore that option, I'd certainly be down to trying that. I don't have any boundaries that I want to set on myself. I want to open up the doors to all opportunities, and whether that's playing guard, even whether they want me to say, okay, we want you to be a blocking tight end and we want you to be 280 pounds again, whatever opportunities present themselves, be completely open to.
Well, I know teams are definitely going to love that mindset, and they're going to love the fact that you're pretty much a blank canvas. They, like you said, you're a ball of clay. They can mold. So, last question for you. What is a fan base getting with Jake Witt, both on and off the field?
Yeah, you're going to get somebody, I pride myself in my work ethic and just staying humble. I come from a small area, so I want, one of my big goals is to show like just people, especially from my area in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but anywhere, any kid from a smaller school that they don't live in a big city, so they think they have these boundaries when it comes to playing athletics at the next level, whether it's college, professional. And, I'm going to be super happy to represent the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and show, these kids from anywhere, a smaller area, that it's not necessarily a boundary being from this area. If you have an opportunity, you jump on it. There's no saying that you can't achieve it. It's all about just how you take your opportunities, how you take your preparation, your work ethic. But yeah, I would say I'm a blue collar guy. I have a good work ethic. Humble guy. You won't hear me talking about myself too much outside of interviews. And that's what our team will be getting.
I love it. I love it. And for those of you that are interested in learning more about Jake's story, Jake, you had an Athletic, or The Athletic wrote a piece about you. Dane Bugler wrote an awesome piece about your journey. So if anyone's interested, make sure you guys check that out. It was an awesome one. But Jake, thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck in this next month. The NFL draft is approaching very closely. Good luck meeting with teams. Good luck in the draft. And of course, beyond that, definitely going to be rooting for you and following along with your journey.
Absolutely. I appreciate having me on here, Steph. And thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And appreciate all of you that tuned in. Make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel because there will be plenty more content like this to come. I'll be going live again later to discuss Kyle Shanahan's latest comments from the owners' meetings. Be sure to tune into that. But for now, have a great Tuesday afternoon, people. Peace.